Hey guys, welcome back to Cooking 101. It's Sunday again. I'm in my tiny kitchen again. Today we're going to be talking about snacks because that was the request and I always do what my fans request. Alright, so Cooking 101 is a program to help people kind of expand what they're doing at home because a lot of people have been stuck at home because there's crazy stuff going on. I kind of started this show because I wanted to give something that was free for people to watch that could help them get a little more creative in the kitchen, especially if they're not used to cooking all the time. All of us are spending a little more time at home, we're cooking a lot more, and part of my job as a dietitian is to help people kind of figure out healthy ways and creative ways to work around a meal so they don't feel like they're eating boring stuff same day, day in, day out. Today is a talk about snacks. Now, we've done popcorn before. Popcorn is like one of my favorite easy go-to snacks. But I had a request for going over different types of snacks that are healthy that kind of go across different types of food and alternatives you can do that are healthy. Doing the whole subject, sweet, savory, crunchy, salty, all that would be a lot. So I like to focus on one recipe. But I'm going to talk a little bit today about salty crunchy snacks, and then I'm going to show you how to make some salty crunchy snacks. So salty crunchy, everybody loves chips. They're awesome. Even I like chips sometimes, although I start to feel gross when I eat them, but I still like them. It's a big craving people have, very comforting. Nice, crunchy, kind of high fat, high salt content. That's a very pleasurable food for people. So when people start eating healthy, I've had a lot of people who are like, but I love chips, what do I do? That's all I crave, day in and day out. So what you can do is make some alternatives. You can still make things kind of salty. How salty depends on your health needs. If you have high blood pressure, you might want to back away from the salt a little bit. We've talked about before, you can flavor things with other stuff like lemon, or you can use a little bit of vinegar, or you can use spices. So if you can't eat salt, we'll go over how you can adapt this recipe today. And I've totally lost my train of thought, but that's okay, because I still know what we're going to do today. So getting that crunch in is pretty hard. There's not a lot of things that are healthy that are also like crispy crunchy, like chips are, basically. So that's what I usually try to kind of nail with my recommendations, but I also follow a few rules. The rules of what a good snack is. A good snack is going to be high in protein, or high in fiber, or ideally high in both. Why is that? When we snack, well, especially if we're stressed out, like me, we tend to eat a lot of that snack. We tend to mindlessly eat a lot of that snack. Going through a bag of chips can be a very comforting experience. But there's nothing to really turn off that eating, especially when you are eating out of a bag. But even when you put it in a bowl, like most people eat chips and then crave more chips. Why is that? Things like potato chips and corn chips do not have a lot of protein. They do not have a lot of fiber. They have a little, but not a lot. They're mostly made of refined, starchy carbohydrates, which are super easy to digest and burn through. Fiber and protein make you feel full. They fill your belly up because we can't digest right through them. Basically, if you were trying to set a piece of paper on fire, that's carbohydrates because it go right up, or even a piece of like tissue paper. If you tried to set a piece of, I don't know, rubber on fire, it would catch on fire eventually and burn as fuel, but it would take a long time and it would take a while for it to even catch. So that's kind of the metaphor here. We burn calories for fuel, and we burn everything for fuel. We can burn fat, we can burn carbohydrates, we can burn protein. That is their purpose in our body. It's neither good nor bad, but we burn through carbohydrates really, really fast. Carbs are really good when you need calories and fuel right away. But if you're having a snack and you're snacking because you're hungry, or even if you're snacking because you're not hungry, if you're bored or you're stressed out, you need something that's going to fill you up so that you don't over snack and then feel awful about it. So high protein, high fiber, those are the keys to a successful snack. That's always what I'm looking for when I'm recommending things. How to make that crispy, crunchy, and salty? Well, there are a few things you can do here. Like I said, we talked about popcorn in another video. Popcorn is a really good one because popcorn is super, super high fiber, which is funny because it comes from a starchy vegetable, corn. But when you pop it, the fiber is much more present in it. You get some of that carb starch out of it. The rest of the white stuff is pretty starchy, but it's very low calorie in that state. So you can eat quite a bit of crunchy, crispy popcorn and not worry about your overeating, and it'll help fill you up, so you're not going to burn right through it either. So that's a nice fibery snack that's low in calorie. Another thing you can do, and you can make this at home as well, is crunchy roasted chickpeas. So we're going to make that today, and I'm going to get to all the health and benefits of that. I just want to name a couple other crunchy, crispy, salty snacks that you can make that are still healthy for you. Another one that I really like is nori. Now, nori is the black or greenish sushi paper that you wrap sushi in. It is almost 0 calorie. In fact, I don't even buy nori snacks that are prepackaged. I literally just, if I'm at a store that's like an Asian market or I see it at Whole Foods, I'll buy the sheets of nori paper you use to make sushi because they're cheaper, and they literally say 0 calories for serving, which is a sheet. So I feel pretty good about eating that. I don't know about you guys, but a lot of the time when I am craving salty snacks, I'm not actually hungry, but I want to taste, I want that mouthfeel. So eating a bunch of nori will not cause any excess calories, but it will satisfy that craving, and then I can go about my business a little bit. So I keep those on hand in case of emergency, basically. You can also make kale chips. Kale chips are kind of similar to what we're going to do today. You dry the kale off with paper towel after washing it. You toss it in some olive oil and you bake it in the oven at around like 350. And that can get nice and crispy. You can add whatever you want to flavor it. But not everybody likes kale. So it's a really good option because it is so high in fiber. And it can get pretty nice and crispy in the oven. But for some people, they're like, no, please leave the green vegetables out of my snacking. Which I get. So that brings us to the chickpeas. Beans are awesome. They are high in protein. They have a little bit of carb. That actually makes them a really good after workout snack for those who are into exercise and fitness. The ideal post-workout snack has carb and protein because those things together stop protein catabolism, which means that your body's not going to digest the new muscles you're starting to grow while lifting. So beans are awesome for that. They're also awesome in general for anyone because they are high in protein and high in fiber. And like I said, you either want to snack high in protein or high in fiber, but the kind of golden whatever is getting them both together. I am really lapsing on words today, so I apologize. I don't know what things are because I'm very tired. But yeah, moving on. Garbanzo beans, chickpeas, they're very, very high in protein and fiber. They work together. They're pretty low calorie. A lot of people kind of stay away from chickpeas because they do have carb, and yes, they do. They're not carb free. But what's good is because they have enough fiber, they're going to slow that digestion of the carb down. So it's not like eating a potato chip. Potato chip is so low in fiber and so low in protein, you burn right through it. This has fiber. Fiber slows the absorption of carbohydrate. So it's going to slow everything down. You're not going to burn through it right away. It's going to keep you nice and full. It's going to just be a very satisfying snack. I often recommend hummus because it's easy. You can just dip a vegetable into it, eat it, you're good. But that's not crunchy. So we're going to do crunchy with the chickpeas. So I bought myself a can. Ooh, it is full of liquid, which I forgot. And now I've got liquid everywhere. Awesome. Anything can happen on live TV. Good job, me. All right. Got myself a can of chickpeas. Let's try this again. First thing you do is drain it. Now, I have kind of cut the lid almost all the way through. There's like a little attachment point. So I just hold that lid down and I pour it into my sink, which is right where the light is, but it is good for showing things off. So as you can see, I'm just draining the liquid out of the can. Drain it as best you can. It doesn't have to be perfect. When you are roasting something to become crispy, you need it to be as dry as possible. That's because any kind of liquid will start to create steam, and steam will not allow for crispiness. Alright, so the second thing you're going to do, I have my paper towels here. I have 2 layers on the bottom and 1 on top. I'm just going to lay it out on the paper towel and try to spread out the chickpeas so they're not stacked one on top of the other. Alright, little escapee here. Alright. So I'm just going to spread them out. You want to remove any loose skins. So there you go. That's a skin. You don't have to sit here peeling them, but if you see the skins coming off, just pick them out. They are not going to add any funness to the baked roasted chickpeas. There we go. Just removing the skin. And you can just toss those. I'm going to throw them in the sink. There we go. So spread out your chickpeas so they're not stacked on top of each other. Now you guys can do this with dry chickpeas, but it's going to be more of a pain in the neck. So I just go for canned because it's easy. I did get low sodium, no sodium added canned chickpeas. If you can find those, I recommend it. They put a lot of salt in this stuff. You're going to salt this yourself, so you don't really need extra salt on there. So I'm just putting a paper towel on top, and I'm just very gently pressing down. And then I like to be pretty thorough, so I'm going to actually make a little roll. And just try and soak as much of that liquid off as possible. Alright. Step 2, this is like the easiest, shortest thing. There's 3 steps. Step 2, once your chickpeas are dry, well, not dry, but once you have soaked up as much liquid as possible, just pour them into a bowl. The other nice thing about making a roll is it's really, really easy to drop everything into a bowl. There we go. So I got my bowl of chickpeas here. You're going to add a very slight amount of olive oil. It's not going to seem much at all. Tablespoon or less if you're into measurements, but just tiny, tiny bit. I'm just drizzling a little. I'm going to move it around in the bowl so that the olive oil is going to coat, because the oil is going to sink to the bottom. So if I just stir the chickpeas around, they are going to get coated. You're not drenching these in olive oil. And the reason being is, again, if you have things that are soaking wet, they are not going to get crisp. And the whole point of this exercise is to make everything crisp. Now, I'm going to add salt because a little bit of salt is good. I like it. You don't have to. You can bypass this altogether. I'm not adding a ton. I like using this grinder because it really limits how much salt. I'm not dumping salt in there. I'm also going to add a tiny bit of cumin. Now, I'm not adding much spice right now. And that is because, A, it's very easy to overwhelm your dish with spices. The first time I cooked this, I had no idea what I was doing. This was years ago, and I dumped way too much cumin in, and then I could not eat them. They were like super salty, super cumin punch you in the nose chickpeas, and I did not know about less is more back then. So you can just limit what you're putting on there for now. You can always add it later. In fact, one of the recipes I found for this, it said don't add any of the spices until later, but that could be because they don't want the spices to scorch in the oven. But I like a little bit, heat brings out a little bit of the potency of spice, so I'm adding a little. I'm also adding a little bit of ancho chili powder to mine. That'll give it kind of a smoky quality. And I've got a little bit of paprika, so I'm going to add that too. Now, like I said, if you are avoiding salt, you can skip the salt altogether and just go to the spices. Spices are totally salt-free. They're not going to affect blood pressure or any other health outcomes. And they will give you flavor. So you can skip salt altogether. I put a little bit in. I'm not too worried about my blood pressure, even though everything is stressful all the time. So, But even the amount of salt I put in is not a lot. It's definitely less than a teaspoon, and a teaspoon is your limit for the day. So, and I'm not going to eat this whole thing right now. So a little bit of salt, like a pinch, totally fine. Ton of salt, not so good. All right, so as I'm mixing, some of the skins are still coming off, so I'm just going to pick those out. No harm, no foul. So everything is nice and coated evenly. And then you're going to take a sheet pan or any kind of wide, flat surface baking item that you have and put a little parchment paper on it. Parchment paper is different than wax paper. Wax paper has a wax coating. Parchment paper is just baking safe paper. Don't put regular paper in, it might catch on fire. But parchment paper is totally baking safe. So you're going to lay out the chickpeas on the parchment paper on your cookie sheet. And again, you just want to spread them out. You don't want them stacked one on top of the other. They're not going to get evenly cooked if they are stacked on each other. So give them a little space. Everybody just needs their own personal space. Just spreading it out. And they're good to go. So I've been heating my oven to 400 degrees Fahrenheit. And you're going to bake them. Now, supposedly in a good functioning oven, you're going to bake them for 30 to 40 minutes. My oven is super tiny and slow at baking. I thought like a smaller space with intense heat would be good, but it never is. So I have upped the temperature to like 415 to push them a little bit, and then I left them in for 40 minutes, and that seemed to do the trick. The trick here is don't pull them out too early. I have done this before, and then you're left with like semi-soft, semi-crunchy chickpeas, which is not the best texture if you're going for a crunchy, salty snack. So just keep leaving them in. Turning up the heat like I did will start to make them scorch a little bit, so you might just want to be patient, which I'm not, and leave them in just as long as you need to leave them in until they are completely crunchy. But all you do is put them in the oven and leave them there, and check on them in 30 minutes. If they're not crunchy, then start upping it by like 10 to 15 minutes and see if they're better. Note that whenever you open an oven, it's going to let some of the heat out, so you need it to heat up again and then like another 10 minutes to bake, make it crispy. But yeah, that's how you make chickpeas. You can make a big batch of them, and then you'll have snacks for a couple days. So a little magic of a cooking show. I have my pre-made ones here. They have a nice crunchy ring to them in the bowl. I added a little more paprika after I was done cooking with them just to spice them up a little bit more because they were pretty bland. But it's better to go small and add afterwards than just be completely drenched in something that doesn't taste good. You can store these in an airtight container. After 2 days, they're probably going to get a little bit stale. They get a little soft and weird, so they might not be as appealing, but they're a really good snack to have around. They're really easy to make. They're not as fast as popcorn, but like within an hour, you'll have a crispy, crunchy snack to eat that's also healthy and also super good for your workouts. So it's pretty handy. It's pretty convenient. If you have absolutely no time or tolerance for this stuff, you can buy these pre-made. There are a couple of companies out there. They're selling in most grocery stores. I see them at my west side all the time. So you can also just skip all this and go buy a bag of them. Same thing for kale chips. Same thing for popcorn, honestly. So it's all in what you want to do. I find it's pretty cheap to buy a couple of cheap cans of chickpeas and just make it yourself versus buying a bag that's pre-made and you're paying for the labor that went behind it. Also, you can control what goes in it, whereas when they're pre-made, you can't. So you can make it as healthy or as unhealthy as you want. So that's crispy, crunchy, salty snacks for today. If you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments. If you want some chickpeas and you live near me, I'll hand them out to you. Otherwise, if you guys are interested in working with me one-on-one, you can always go to my website, jrockrd.com. I am now taking new clients. Everything is virtual, so you won't have to go outside your home in this time of COVID, which is a plus. I use a video platform to meet face-to-face with my patients, and it's been working out pretty well. If you like this program and you'd like to support it, I also take donations at my Venmo, which is at JSRockRD. That helps my business. It also helps me afford to buy groceries for all my demos. If you can't afford it right now, that's totally cool. I like to keep this program free because right now a lot of us are in kind of dire straits with our jobs, and this is something I wanted to provide for people who might be in need of it. So I hope you enjoyed today, and if you want to give me a suggestion for what to cook, please leave a suggestion in the comments. If not, or an idea comes across your mind or a question, send me a message, leave a comment, and I hope to hear from you. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you guys next week.